A tiny part that costs around $20, and that almost no shop ever checks, because it has a sneaky way of fooling everybody. When it starts failing little by little, it doesn't point the finger at itself. Instead, it makes it look like the problem is coming from a bunch of other parts at the same time. So before anyone even thinks to suspect it, you've already paid to replace half the engine for nothing. Remember this, because it's the whole point of everything that's coming. If you made it this far, God bless you and your family. And you can bless me back too, just by dropping a like on this video and leaving a comment down below. I'm going to tell you exactly which part it is, I promise. But first I want to ask you for something. Do this right now, while you're listening to me. Free, no shop, no money out of pocket. Why am I asking before I keep going? Because there's a real chance, and not a small one, that you won't even need what comes next. First, turn off the engine and let it sit for about 5 minutes. Your car's computer sometimes just needs to reset to stop flagging a problem that's already gone. Sometimes that alone fixes it. Second, and this is the one that saves people the most, check the wires and connectors on the sensors. Make sure they're plugged in tight. No moisture, no corrosion, no bare wire showing. Pay close attention here, because almost nobody knows this. A loose connector will trigger the check engine light exactly the same way a dead part would. Unplug it, clean it with electrical contact cleaner, plug it back in, and in a lot of cases the problem gets solved right there in your driveway in 10 minutes. Third, get yourself an OBD2 scanner. It plugs into a port under your steering wheel and runs somewhere between $20 and $40. Once you've got the code in your own hands, you stop depending on whatever anyone else tells you. That cheap little tool is what hands the control back to you. Now, if you've already done those 3 things and the light is still sitting there, stubborn, lit up, then the problem is real. And that's where the real mess starts, because from this point on, even your own scanner is going to start lying to you. And I'm telling you this with my hands still covered in grease, after decades under the hood, watching the same scam play out over and over. Listen closely to what's coming, because this is the most important part of the whole thing. Your car's computer doesn't see parts, it only sees numbers. And that's exactly where the problem starts. If one sensor feeds it the wrong number, it makes the wrong call while thinking it's doing the right thing. This is the part almost nobody understands, and it's what's going to change how you look at that check engine light forever. The symptom shows up somewhere else in the engine, not where the actual culprit is. That's why the scanner points at the spark plug, when the real problem is sitting right next to it. The spark plug isn't broken, it's misfiring because another sensor lied to the computer first, and the computer simply believed it. And you're going to tell me, but the scanner flagged the spark plug. True, but it flagged whatever failed last, not whatever started the problem. That difference sounds tiny, but it's going to save you hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars from here on out. So let's go through this together, suspect by suspect, ruling each one out, until we get to the actual responsible party. We start with the most famous one of all, the sensor that measures how much air is flowing into the engine. Based on that number, the computer decides how much fuel to inject. It's a simple sensor, with a thin little wire that heats up. Air passing over it cools it down, and the more air that passes, the more it cools. The computer picks up on that change and calculates the airflow from it. That's simple. You'll find it right after the air filter. When it starts failing, you'll feel it immediately. The engine shakes, idle gets rough, it stumbles when you accelerate, and above all, it starts burning way more gas than it should. And here comes the tip that's going to save you the most money in this whole video. Stick around. This sensor almost never actually breaks, it just gets dirty. So before you rush out to buy a new one, which isn't cheap, pull it out. It's usually just 2 screws. Clean it with a sensor-safe cleaner spray from any auto parts store, let it dry completely, and put it back. About $8 versus more than $20 for a brand new one. But there's something worse than a dirty sensor, something almost nobody checks, and it stings more once you understand it. If air is getting in through a cracked hose or a dried-out gasket anywhere after this sensor, that extra air never gets measured, nobody ever sees it. And notice how unfair that is. The sensor isn't lying, it's just being kept in the dark. It honestly reports the air it managed to measure, but there's more air inside the engine than it ever got to see. The result is the fuel mixture gets thrown off, and the check engine light comes on. And what ends up getting replaced? That sensor, and then another sensor further down by the exhaust. Both of them were perfectly fine. The real culprit was a $15 hose that cracked open from the heat. One cheap little hose causing two expensive parts to get swapped out. And speaking of that other sensor, watch what happens if you leave a dirty airflow sensor in there too long. It tells the computer less air is coming in than actually is. The computer does the math wrong, and the engine ends up running rich, meaning too much fuel. That extra fuel goes straight to the sensor sitting by the exhaust, like a snowball that just won't stop rolling. That second sensor measures how much oxygen is left in the exhaust after the fuel has already burned. Based on that number, the computer knows if the mixture is running rich or lean, and corrects it instantly. Your car has at least two of these, one before the part that cleans up the exhaust, the catalytic converter, and one after it, to check that it's actually doing its job. When this sensor fails, you'll notice higher fuel consumption, a rotten egg smell coming from the exhaust, black smoke, hesitation, and it can even fail an emissions test. And this is where the whole chain locks into place. This sensor starts feeding bad information, and that causes unburned fuel to pile up right into the catalytic converter. The converter clogs, and here's the bill nobody warns you about, the one that really hurts. An $8 airflow sensor you never cleaned in time can end up turning into a $1,500 catalytic converter replacement. And here's the worst part of all. When the computer flags this catalytic converter problem, the shop tells you it's the converter and hands you a quote that knocks you flat. But hold on a second, because that code doesn't necessarily mean the converter is actually bad. It means the two oxygen sensors are reading too similar to each other. And that can mean two very different things. Either the converter really is clogged, or the rear sensor just isn't reading correctly anymore. One costs $1,500. The other costs about $100. Mixing those two up can get very expensive. Spark plugs and ignition coils. The two parts that always get blamed first. Before you ever get to the catalytic converter, there are two parts that almost always get replaced first. And it's not always because someone's trying to rip you off. I want to be fair here. They're cheap, and the scanner points a finger at them without hesitation. Spark plugs, which create the spark, and ignition coils, which send power to that spark. When one of the engine cylinders isn't burning fuel properly, the computer flags a misfire, without saying which part actually caused it. And here's the whole point of this video, so pay very close attention. That code is a symptom, not a cause. It tells you a cylinder misfired, but it doesn't tell you why. And the why could be the spark plug, the coil, the wire, or any of the sensors feeding the computer bad information about how much fuel to send into that cylinder. That's why people replace plugs, then wires, then coils, and a week later the problem comes knocking again, because you're replacing whatever failed last, not whatever started it. Sound familiar? Has this exact thing happened to you? If what I just explained clicked for you, subscribe. This channel exists so you stop getting charged for parts that were perfectly fine. Two sensors that get mixed up with each other. There are still two sensors that get confused with each other more than any other pair in the engine. The first one tells the computer what position the crankshaft is in as it spins. Since the pistons are connected to that shaft, knowing its position is the same as knowing exactly where every piston is at any given moment. Based on that, the computer decides when to inject fuel and when to fire the spark. If this sensor dies completely, the car simply won't start, plain and simple. If it fails part way, you'll feel hesitation, rough idle, and higher fuel consumption. The second one works the same way, but it reads the camshaft instead, the shaft that opens and closes the valves, which lets the computer know exactly which cylinder needs fuel injected at exactly which moment. And pay close attention here, because this is where a lot of people get it wrong. The symptoms of both are almost identical. That's why some people end up replacing the wrong one, the crankshaft sensor, when the real problem was the camshaft sensor, and the other way around too. There are still a few more sensors you need to know about, so let's move through these quickly. There's a sensor that measures pressure inside the tube where air enters the engine. It basically does the same job as the airflow sensor we already covered, just through a different method. That's why, when it fails, the symptoms are pretty much the same. There's another one that tells the computer how far down you're pressing the gas pedal. When it fails, the car accelerates whenever it feels like it, not when you want it to, and the idle goes haywire, like it's got a mind of its own. There's also one that measures the temperature of the incoming air, because cold air is denser and carries more oxygen for combustion. This one's usually built right into the airflow sensor itself. And there's the oil pressure sensor, and I'm telling you this one dead serious. This isn't just another tip. If your oil light comes on while you're driving, pull over somewhere safe as soon as you can, shut off the engine, and check the level. Never keep driving with that light on without checking. An engine with no oil can seize up in minutes. And at that point, we're not talking about a $20 part anymore. Last one, there's a sensor that works almost like a tiny microphone bolted to the engine, tuned to listen for fuel burning incorrectly and causing knocking inside the engine. If it hears that, it tells the computer, which retards the timing to protect the engine. Without this sensor, that kind of knocking can quietly end up cracking the pistons. No warning at all. Number 5. The real culprit. Now stop for a second. Look at everything we just went through together. The airflow sensor, the oxygen sensor, the spark plugs, the coils, both shaft sensors, the throttle position sensor. You replaced all of it, spent a fortune, and that stubborn light is still on. Why? Because the actual culprit was never on that list, and it was never going to be, for one very specific reason. The part responsible for most of the failures no mechanic catches on the first try is the engine coolant temperature sensor, and it costs around $20. After everything you've already spent. This sensor tells the computer how hot the engine is running, and with that one piece of information, it decides almost everything else. A cold engine needs more fuel to start, a warm one needs less. The computer also uses it to turn on the radiator fans and to trigger the car's limp home mode. You'll find it near the thermostat, or anywhere along the coolant path. Now give me your full attention, because this is where the whole truth comes out. When this sensor dies completely, yes, the computer flags it directly. That one's easy, anybody can catch that. But when it fails gradually, drifting off little by little without ever falling completely out of range, something much sneakier happens. The computer keeps trusting it, and that's exactly why it doesn't get flagged. A bunch of other parts do instead. It tells the computer the engine is cold when it's actually warm. Trusting that, the computer dumps in extra fuel. The engine ends up running rich, and that excess fuel is what triggers a misfire code, an oxygen sensor code, high fuel consumption, all of it all at the same time. And the mechanic, trusting nothing but what the scanner shows, replaces plugs, coils, wires, the airflow sensor, the oxygen sensor, everything we already covered, in that exact order. Remember that loose connector from the beginning of the video? The one that triggers the light like the part is completely dead? Same exact thing. A cheap little part feeding bad information, and you end up paying for the expensive part instead. This sensor costs about $20. The scanner that catches it costs another $20 to $40. And even so, plenty of people have already been charged thousands of dollars for parts that were never actually broken. The cruelest case of all. But there's one even crueler than that. The last one I'm going to tell you about, and maybe the one that's going to make you the most angry. Sometimes this temperature sensor isn't lying at all. Sometimes it's telling you the plain truth. The engine really is cold. And why would that happen? Because the thermostat got stuck open. The thermostat is what holds coolant back until the engine reaches its proper operating temperature. If it's stuck open, coolant keeps circulating non-stop and the engine never fully warms up. The sensor honestly reports that it's cold. The computer believes it and keeps dumping in cold start fuel. The result, you're stuck with high fuel consumption, rough idle, and in some cases even an oxygen sensor code. They replaced the sensor, and the sensor was perfectly fine. Again. And here's a free clue that won't cost you a thing. If your car's heater takes forever to warm up, or never really gets hot, suspect the thermostat before you touch a single sensor. How to check this yourself. Now I'm going to show you how to check all of this with your own two hands, today, without depending on anybody else. With your scanner plugged in, pull up the live data for engine temperature, with the engine stone cold. If the car sat off all night, that number needs to be pretty much the same as the outside air temperature. If it's 68 degrees outside and the scanner is showing 104, there's your liar. Then start the engine and watch how the temperature climbs. It needs to rise gradually until it hits normal operating temperature. If it jumps around, drops suddenly, or gets stuck on one number, that sensor is lying. And if it climbs so slowly it never quite gets there, it's not the sensor anymore, it's the thermostat. Compare that number to your dashboard gauge. If the scanner says one thing and the gauge says another, one of the two is lying to you. And if you don't have a scanner handy, there's still a free clue. Watch the radiator fan. If it kicks on when it shouldn't, or doesn't kick on when it should, that's because the computer is making that call based on this exact temperature sensor. And if the fan is acting strange, that reading is off. That's really it. Before I let you go, Let me remind you why I walked you through all of this. No sensor is some kind of black box. They're simple parts, each one with one specific job. And now that you know what they do, where they're located, and what can actually go wrong, you stop being a customer left in the dark. You become an informed owner, and an informed owner is a lot harder to fool. You stop walking into a shop and just letting them sell you whatever they want. You walk in with a clear suspicion already in mind. An honest mechanic is going to notice that, and treat you with more respect. A dishonest one is going to leave you alone, because he knows you're not an easy target anymore. So the next time that check engine light comes on, instead of feeling dread or just giving up, you're going to feel curious. You're going to think twice before letting anyone replace the first part they point at. And the knowledge you're walking away with today never goes away. It's going to serve you well on this car, on the next one, and on every car you ever own. Coming back to the most divisive part of this video, the catalytic converter getting clogged because of a dirty airflow sensor. Would you go ahead and pay for a new converter the second a shop tells you that's the code? Or would you stop and check the rear oxygen sensor first before spending that kind of money? Let me know in the comments if this has happened to you, or if you've ever second-guessed a shop because of exactly this. If you made it this far, God bless you and your family. And you can bless me back too, just by dropping a like on this video and leaving a comment down below. And if you want to stop overpaying for parts that were never even broken, check out the video popping up on your screen right now. It's going to help you avoid falling into this exact trap again.